Hello everybody, this is Abraham at North Shore Computer Services, and what we got here today are the printers. These are two different printers originally made by Pentax. It's Pentax PocketJet 3 Plus, currently managed by Brother, and Brother took over the whole Pentax operation for these printers. This is a Pocket Jet 3 Plus, and this one here is a PocketJet 2. What I want to show is, well, first of all, these printers were made a few years ago. They were very expensive considering, like $300–400 per printer. They were used in police cars. And what's nice about these printers is, number one, portability. They are tiny. I mean, just slap the parts together. That's about the size of a printer. Okay, so number one, tiny. Number two, they don't use ink. These are thermal printers. This is the thermal print head. And you just have to get the paper, thermal paper, and the paper has the ink on it. It's not really ink, but it turns black wherever you touch it with something warm. This print head has pixels on it that get hot and they create dots on the paper. That's how image is produced. So what I found was the PocketJet 3 Plus in good condition working printer could cost up to $100. PocketJet 2 can be bought in good condition really cheap. I mean, I got this one here. It's fully functional printer. I took it apart. I bought it for 15 bucks. And the reason for it, and that's one thing that I did not understand, was that you cannot plug the Jet 2 directly into any computer. It uses this proprietary connector that has adapters, and you have to get it, and those adapters don't really exist, because what happened was, when these were pulled out of the working environment, the adapters were left wherever they were pulled out from. So if these were serving in a squad car, the adapters are in those squad cars. This one can operate with a USB, can operate with COM, LPT. That's why they had this open connector that you could connect many different things to it. But today, with no adapters available, or very few of them available, very limited number available, these printers are worthless. But the reason that I want to bring the two together in disassembled form is to show that if you can buy a $15 PocketJet 2, which parts can be transferred to the PocketJet 3 Plus or 3. And the reason that you want 3 is simple. This one has infrared port right built into the printer, which is kind of useless. Not too many devices today use infrared port, but it has the USB port. The USB port is standard mini USB, and that's really all that's needed. There are modifications of this printer that have Bluetooth, that have, I guess Bluetooth is the only thing. The newer printers, 4, 5, 6, I don't know, I'm not really following the whole thing. I discovered this printer relatively recently. They have the Wi-Fi and all that other stuff. I like wires, I like plugging it in, and as long as I can plug it in and get my stuff printed, I like it. So for me, PocketJet 3 or 3 Plus would serve just fine. So you cannot really take the motherboard from PocketJet 3 and put it into PocketJet 2. It will fit physically because they didn't change much as far as mounting, but there are other issues. So here's what can be transferred from Jet 2 to Jet 3. Okay, your pinch roller, that would transfer. They are identical. Your driver motor, okay, they are identical, and the connectors on them are identical. I've tried it. So if you have a mechanism issue, you could buy the Jet 2 and transfer it to the Jet 3. Most importantly, the head assembly is transferable. The Jet 2 and the Jet 3 use exactly the same head. What's not transferable is the connection between the head and the motherboard. So Jet 2 uses a bigger one, Jet 3 uses a smaller one. But these do disconnect from the head, so all you need is a wiring harness, but the head itself can be transferred from one to another. Moreover, the battery can be transferred to Jet 3. These batteries cost about $100 if you want to buy it. But if you get a printer, Jet 2, that has a battery in it, it can be transferred. It's not a direct transfer. The connector needs to be replaced. However, this connector, the Jet 2 uses two leads. Okay, so it's a connector with two. Jet 3 uses 3. But I've been looking and testing. The third connector does absolutely nothing. There is no connection between this connector. If I'm looking at it this way, my left connector, it's just dummy. Plus and minus are on the connector, and the third is not being used. Then what I did was I went to look for the battery for the Jet 3, and I found that there was only two wires going into the connector between the battery and the motherboard, confirming my suspicion that the third one does absolutely nothing. And I guess they did it. Well, Jet 2 has a little more space. It's actually, to be fair, it's built much better than Jet 3. Both are very well built, but certain small things, like this connector, is much more massive, so it can handle a lot more abuse, especially if it's in the car. So I would side with this type of connector. In fact, I would pull this one out and transfer it over here. That's probably what I'll do. Or you can get triple. This is the same one as used on CPU fans. Plug that in, cut this off, put the connector on there, but I'm siding with putting that on. Another thing that's transferable is the top. These two, believe it or not, are exactly the same in every aspect. The connections on the inside are exactly the same. So this would be swappable. What's not swappable? Well, obviously the motherboard, although if you look at them side by side, the mounting points are exactly the same. Okay, so there's that, that one's not used. So 3 holes for that, and the rest are on the mechanism itself. So all that is the same. As you can see, that the mechanisms all align and can be perfectly swapped. The only one thing that's not swappable, and it's kind of strange why it's not, but it isn't, is the cover for where it says Jet 2 and Jet 3. This one has battery, data, and power, and this one has error, data, and power. Although the lights are the same, the connections are very different. For some reason, the Jet 3 has more of them, same number of lights. So, and they're on the wrong side. So this one's on the upper side, this one's on the lower side. So these cannot be swapped. However, to be fair, this can be unclipped, this little plastic thing, and the lights can be taken out, and this connector can be taken out if for some reason your um, this and is broken. So you can swap them. The plastic is the same. It's just that the electronics is not the same. But this one is not critical. If you don't have these lights and the printer works, you can live without them. So that's what can and cannot be done with these printers. And here is the reason why I bought it. So I was at the airport, and I was about to go through the TSA when I handed my phone with the digital ticket to the TSA agent. My phone died, and I was, oh crap. At the same time, the printer at the hotel I was staying was broken, and I did not have the paper tickets. So I had to get out of the line of the TSA, go to the ticket counter, reprint my tickets, go back, stand in line again. Thankfully, I had time, but if I was pressed for time, I just don't want to think about situations like that. So I'd like to have a tiny printer with a couple of pages of thermal paper with me, and if I need to print a ticket, poof, print it out. There are printers available today, inkjet printers, but they are bigger, much bigger than this. Plus you have to have ink, and it could leak in the airplane because of the compression, decompression. I don't like inkjet printers for travel. This is perfect. Imagine squad car parked in a hot and cold and snow and rain. I mean, not rain directly on the equipment, but just around, high humidity, low humidity. These things are tough. Also, I found that these things can be used for tattoo printing. So people would get a special paper, print it through this printer, and then do the tattoos. Tattoo printers, or I should say same exact printer sold as a tattoo printer, I saw it for $400. In other words, these printers have a lot of value, and these parts have a lot of value. Because the Pocket 2 has no connector on it, this has very low value. I mean, if you have the connector and yours is broken, this one has some value, but this has very low value. But it's not a critical component. Everything else can be interchanged, and that's beautiful. So you could save yourself money, go with a Jet 3, get yourself a Jet 2, swap the parts, whatever is broken, and be on your merry way. One more thing. You can get Jet 3 that has, or Jet 2, or any of these thermal printers. When they print, they leave a long vertical line, and usually you can get a really good deal on those printers. It does require to take apart the printer. It's the print head that has an issue. So if you're getting a printer that has a line on it, there are two things that could be wrong with it. Number one, the print head could be bad, which if you have Jet 2, and I will bring this up higher, the model numbers are identical. Okay, so if you have Jet 2, you could just swap the print head. It fits just fine. But before you get Jet 2, you want to take it apart, get the pinch roller out, and clean this head, because what usually happens, somebody fed paper through, there was a tiny speck of something sticky, got stuck to the print head, and that's what's producing those vertical lines. Basically, as paper goes through the print head, some of these pixels cannot go or cannot send the heat through that sticky stuff to the paper, and you get that line. Just run your nail through it, and then alcohol, maybe look with a magnifying glass. You will see those pesky little dust particles or sticky things that cause these lines. Like I said, the worst case scenario is swap the head from a working printer, and most likely your Jet 2 will be working and sold because it has no accessories with it. So hopefully this helps somebody. This video should save whoever is looking for a printer like that, like this, at least $100. I guarantee it, because a nice, good working printer, Jet 3, would be $100 to $150 with all the accessories. So battery, at least $100. Mine came with no battery. In fact, I bought it broken, but the part that was broken I couldn't scavenge from the Jet 2. Let's see, the other thing that I wanted to show, be back in a moment. So Jet 2, on top of using the special connector for interface, uses a special connector for power supply. Jet 3 uses a standard connector for the power supply. Rated, okay, if we look at the bottom of the Jet 3, it's rated at 15 volts, 1.3 amps. What I found was that it works perfectly fine with 12-volt power supply. This one came from a netgear router, fairly big router. So this one is 12-volt, 1.5 amps. Now, if you're lowering the voltage and upping the amps, it should handle. I've tried it, it was happy. So this one here is netgear model. Can't read it. I'll bring it up and I'll try and put it in description what can be used with these printers. So that's what's nice about Jet 3 and Jet 2, interchangeable parts, easily connectable printer, and you can get a broken one cheap, get another one even cheaper, build one out of two, get yourself a printer for, you know, I don't know, under $50, and have all the accessories with it. So this printer here cost me under $50 with battery, with power supply, and a USB port to connect to my computer. Thumbs up if this saves you something. Thank you.